A conceited man who takes advantage of older women for their money unexpectedly becomes attracted to a waitress with a hidden motive. Nikki, a narcissistic man, is leaving a grand mansion, preoccupied with thoughts of his exceptional good looks. He reinforces this belief by reminiscing about a physical relationship he had with his mother's friend. As he walks down the street, he recalls his initial arrival in Los Angeles, where he dreamed of fame, wealth, and the companionship of women. Fortunately, most of these aspirations became a reality. Later that night, he heads to a nightclub and meets Samantha, his latest love interest, and tries to win her over. Initially, the beautiful lawyer rejects his advances, but eventually falls for his charming tactics. The wealthy woman then takes the self-absorbed man to her extravagant home. During a private moment, the woman deliberately holds back, ensuring that she will desire more. The next morning, Samantha informs Nikki that she is going to work. In response, he uses his manipulative rollover sleeping smile move to further captivate her. Instead of asking him to leave, she smiles and leaves a note allowing him to use her credit card to buy breakfast. While Samantha is at work, Nikki enjoys his time in the luxurious house and even cooks a meal for the affluent lawyer. He aims to gain her trust and prolong his stay. When the lawyer returns, the manipulative man treats her like a queen, serving her dinner. When Samantha inquires about Nikki's job, he confesses that he is not actively seeking employment. Despite this revelation, the woman is attracted to him, and they share a passionate moment on the dining table. This routine continues over the next few days as Nikki continues to pamper and charm Samantha. He quietly establishes a comfortable lifestyle without her realizing that he is merely taking advantage of her wealth. One day, the attorney mentions her upcoming trip to New York, which will keep her away for several days. When she invites him to join her, the manipulative man declines, and they agree that he will stay in the house. After dropping Samantha off at the airport and wishing her a safe flight, Nikki hosts a house party and invites a large crowd, including his best friend Harry, who shares his womanizing tendencies. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted when the self-centered man notices his intoxicated and wealthy ex-girlfriend Helen at the party. He worries that she might reveal that the house isn't his, prompting him to instruct Harry to drive her home. Suddenly, another woman named Christina interrupts their conversation and asks for a tour of the house. Nikki indulges his attractive guest, leading to a passionate yet brief encounter with her. After the party ends, Harry returns to Samantha's lavish house after dropping off Helen. Nikki, in a kind gesture, offers a spare bedroom for his friend to spend the night in. The next day, the deceitful man receives a call from Samantha, concerned about his lack of response to her calls from the previous night. In response, the self-centered man insists he didn't hear the phone ring, not revealing that it's due to the noise during the house party. Shortly after, the attorney notifies him that they will be having visitors over once she returns home in the upcoming days. The next day, Nikki extends an invitation to his acquaintance Emily, who is fully aware of his dishonest tendencies. He makes an attempt to initiate a physical encounter, but she remains resolute in her desire for a committed relationship, causing the promiscuous man to depart. Shortly after, Emily approaches him, proposing that they spend some private time together in the bathtub. Later, they transition to the bedroom, where the woman endeavors to convince him to commit to a serious relationship, but he continues to refuse. Following this, Nikki drives his friend to the parking lot before returning to the house to spend time with Christina. To his surprise, Samantha arrives home earlier than anticipated and catches them in the act. The lawyer confronts him for throwing a house party, resulting in a heated argument about their relationship. Ultimately, they decide to remain together, despite Nikki's continued womanizing behavior. During Samantha's absence, Nikki indulges in pancakes at a coffee shop where he encounters Heather. She promptly rejects his advances, but when he asks for her number, the waitress hands him his bill. Undeterred, the flirtatious man writes down his number and leaves without paying for his meal. Annoyed, Heather tracks down Nikki's whereabouts and shows up at the luxurious house, demanding that he settle his bill. He attempts to entice her indoors, but she refuses. After revealing the money, the enraged waitress takes the cash and storms out of the house. Intrigued by the rude waitress, Nikki finds himself unable to stop thinking about her, causing him to lose interest in Samantha. To capture Heather's attention, the self-absorbed man revisits the coffee shop, enlisting Harry to act as his assistant while he assumes the role of a wealthy businessman. Upon noticing Nikki's luxurious Mercedes parked outside, Heather warns him about the possibility of receiving a parking ticket. In response, the womanizer leaves the restaurant and tries to charm the parking officer by attempting to dance with her, much to the amusement of the waitress. However, his plan falls short, and he still ends up with a parking ticket. When Nikki returns to the coffee shop, the impressed Heather discreetly slips a piece of paper with her phone number into his pocket. That evening, the self-absorbed man calls the waitress, who can only promise to call him back because she is busy. Unbeknownst to him, Samantha witnesses this and instantly becomes jealous. The next day, Nikki visits Harry's apartment to store some of his belongings. He confides in his friend that Heather never returned his call. While Harry advises him to move on, Nikki remains determined about his feelings for the waitress, implying his determination to pursue her. Shortly after, he playfully teases Harry about his pet frogs, and in response, his annoyed friend kicks him out of his place. Nikki then returns to Samantha's residence to relax and take a swim. Later, he eventually receives a call from Heather, who extends an invitation to dine together. That night, they rendezvoused at an elegant restaurant. While savoring their meal, Heather is interrupted by an unexpected call and abruptly excuses herself, departing in the midst of their date. Feeling offended, Nikki trails the woman as she departs and confronts her about her impolite conduct. Nevertheless, she remains indifferent and simply drives off. The next morning, Samantha questions Nikki about seeing someone else, but the self-absorbed man denies it. Shortly after, she requests that he drive her to the hospital and pick her up the following day. After fulfilling the lawyer's request, Nikki heads to the coffee shop, only to discover that Heather no longer works there. That night, to his surprise, the promiscuous man finds the former waitress swimming in Samantha's pool. Still upset about the previous night's events, Nikki confronts her for abruptly leaving during their date, suspecting she may have a boyfriend. However, the woman clarifies that her teenage brother, who has multiple sclerosis, had a sudden emergency. She breaks down in tears, prompting Nikki to offer his comfort and support. Following their conversation, they share a tender moment, drawing closer to each other. Nonetheless, Heather expresses her desire to take things slow and not rush. She then requests that he embrace her, leaving the man longing for more. The next morning, Nikki takes the woman's keys to move her Porsche for street cleaning. However, when he gets inside the car, he realizes that it doesn't belong to her. He deduces that it actually belongs to her boyfriend, after noticing the presence of cigars inside. Feeling betrayed by her deception, he goes back to the bedroom, throws the keys and clothes on the woman, and firmly tells her to leave. Later on, Nikki picks up Samantha from the hospital. The medical professional informs him that the woman has undergone surgery and should avoid any romantic activities for a while. In the following days, Samantha realizes that Nikki is no longer answering her calls, which leads her to end their relationship. Before kicking him out, she warns him, mentioning that he will eventually lose his looks and face the same challenges as everyone else. Filled with anger, she slaps him hard across the face. Just as he is about to leave the house, his phone starts ringing, causing Samantha, who is consumed by jealousy, to throw his device into the pool. Homeless and in need of assistance, Nikki reaches out to Harry, but his friend refuses to open the door for him. He then turns to Emily, who responds by hurling insults at him for his promiscuous and manipulative behavior. Desperate for a place to stay, Nikki tries to make amends with Harry and agrees to meet him at an exotic dance club. With the help of Harry's friend Sean, he manages to enter the establishment. Observing the behavior of Harry and Sean towards the performers, the homeless man is filled with disgust at how they mistreat the women and decides to intervene. However, his attempt only leads to a confrontation and a physical fight. As a result, Nikki is thrown out of the club. When Harry points out that the women inside are exotic dancers, the vain man advises him to stop objectifying women. In response, Harry, feeling offended, highlights his deceptive friend's hypocrisy and demands that he leave. In search of a new target to secure a place to stay, the homeless man tries to crash a party but is turned away at the entrance. The next morning, Nikki tries to reconnect with Harry and goes to his apartment, but his friend only throws his belongings at him. Left penniless, Nikki ends up staying at a budget motel. He attempts to contact his mom, but she hangs up when he reveals that he still doesn't have a stable job. Determined to regain a comfortable life, Nikki goes to a hotel the next day and sets his sights on a wealthy woman. While flirting with her, he suddenly spots Heather, who confronts him for pursuing someone older. In response, Nikki confesses his true situation, admitting that he is financially struggling and that the luxurious house was never his. Following this revelation, he discovers that Heather is also running the same scam on wealthy men. Heather then invites Nikki to her apartment, offering him a place to stay. Upon arrival, the woman informs him that she has a roommate who is a frequent marijuana user and rarely leaves the bedroom. Shortly after, Heather discloses that she has ended her relationship with the owner of the Porsche she used to drive and has now moved on to another individual who takes her out for an extravagant dinner that evening. The following day, Nikki starts assisting Heather in attracting the attention of a wealthy man. However, he then requests a portion of her earnings, a demand that she finds completely absurd. Upon reaching their apartment, Heather instructs Nikki to sleep on the couch. Nevertheless, the promiscuous man insists on sleeping next to the former waitress, and they engage in intimate activities. Following that romantic encounter, They begin dating and getting to know each other more intimately. While dining at a restaurant, a woman suddenly approaches Nikki, but he struggles to recall her name, which deeply offends her. To avoid paying for their meal, Heather discreetly hands Nikki a piece of foil and instructs him to chew it along with his food. When he starts experiencing negative reactions, the manipulative woman calls for the waiter, falsely claiming that there is something wrong with their meal and insisting on leaving. The next day, the couple enjoys a picturesque day at the beach, sharing a tender moment as the sun sets. Despite their relationship growing stronger, Heather continues to go out, causing Nikki to suspect that his girlfriend is still pursuing wealthy men. One day, while Nikki is asleep, Heather receives a package from DHL. As she opens the envelope and removes the letter, a cascade of rose petals cascades onto the floor, prompting her to swiftly clean them up. Upon awakening, the man finds his girlfriend looking distressed on the porch. Concerned, he asks her what is troubling her, and she reveals that she has called off her engagement. Upon learning this, Nikki becomes upset because Heather did not inform him about it. The woman then reveals that her former fiancé is a wealthy man who owns the New York Rangers, but she has chosen to end their relationship because she is in love with Nikki. When he asks if she truly loves the wealthy man, she confesses that she did not fake her feelings the entire time. Curious, Nikki wonders if Heather pretended to be in love with him. In response, she asserts that her feelings for him are genuine because she has stayed with him despite his homelessness and lack of employment. Upon hearing this, Nikki feels offended and leaves the house. He goes to a coffee shop to eat and rejects the advances of a woman, realizing that he wants to leave behind his carefree lifestyle and commit to Heather. Before returning home, he picks up a newspaper and is determined to prove to Heather that he can secure a job and provide a bright future for both of them. However, upon entering the house, Nikki discovers a note from Heather stating that she has flown to New York to resolve some matters and advises him not to set the house on fire. After reading the note, he tries to call her multiple times, but she does not answer. The next day, while at the grocery store, the man encounters an elderly and intoxicated acquaintance and offers to give her a ride home. As the woman vomits outside the car, Heather suddenly calls Nikki and asserts that she is not with her ex-boyfriend. The man pleads with her to come back home, but his girlfriend explains that things have become complicated. Suddenly, she starts hearing rumors that Nikki is with another woman. The innocent man tries to explain that he is with a friend, but when Heather discovers that the woman drives a Mercedes, she hangs up, assuming he has returned to his old ways. Back at Heather's apartment, a desperate Nikki tries to talk to Eva, his girlfriend's roommate, who finally emerges from her room. After sharing his problem, Eva encourages him to take action and fly to New York to propose to Heather. She then drives Nikki to Harry's apartment, and the two friends finally reconcile. To show his unwavering support, Harry covers the cost of Nikki's flight to New York. Upon arriving in the city, Nikki follows the address mentioned on the package that Heather received from her ex-fiancé. He knocks on the door and sees his girlfriend, dressed elegantly, opening the door for him. Realizing that Heather is upset, Nikki clarifies that nothing has happened between him and the woman she heard on the phone. After learning this, Heather invites him to enter the luxurious house. As he takes in his surroundings, the man tries to convince her that she is not living the life she truly desires and that everything is superficial. When he suggests that she come home with him, Heather declines, stating that she sees no future with him. Despite her hurtful words, he takes out the ring and proposes. However, Heather rejects him, revealing she has already married her ex-fiancé. Nikki then suggests that she consider getting a divorce, but Heather declines, explaining that she needs a comfortable life. Suddenly, Heather's husband, Will, arrives, leading her to introduce Nikki to him as a delivery person. After the older man gives the courier a tip, he embraces his wife and they share a kiss, which is a heartbreaking sight for Nikki. The devastated man leaves the building and flies back to Los Angeles. He then starts to rebuild his life by securing a job as a delivery person. On one occasion, while delivering groceries to Samantha's house, he meets the man who replaced him. He also begins living with Harry again. And when he returns to his apartment, he feeds his friend's bullfrog with a mouse.